Hey, it's Mark from AirPigz, and if you've been following AirPigz at all here lately, you've been hearing me mention a variety of things about Project VP. VP stands for Volksplane. And what I'm trying to do is actually to, between now and Oshkosh, so a couple months away here, actually build a Volksplane. And I got this idea back in probably March, and that's when I first started working on it, and did some research on an airplane that would be extremely affordable and easy to build, quick to build, fun to fly. Okay, so when you mix all those things together, you start to whittle down to not a whole lot of airplanes, especially if you're trying to build from plans so that you can keep the costs down extremely low. And after doing a lot of research, I came up with the idea of building a Volksplane. And I thought if I did that, though, there'd probably be a variety of changes that I would want to make to it to actually bring it up to a little bit more of a modern-day way of looking and just being a little bit cooler airplane maybe than I used to think a Volksplane was at one time. So I've been doing quite a bit of thinking, drawing, and now even building a mock-up. This is not the real airplane by any means. This is just a mock-up made out of OSB and PVC pipe to do some testing. But I wanted to show you here on the plans, which are actually in an 8.5 by 11 sheet format in a booklet form. But that'll all definitely work. And what I've done is I've created basically this section of the cockpit area. There's a bulkhead here, which is that bulkhead that you see right here. And then we have another bulkhead here, and that's the one that's up further. Up here would be the firewall. I don't have that in place, but basically the OSB that moves forward where it ends, that's right where the firewall would be. And what I've done is I've created this actual size so that I can do a variety of things. One of them was that in this design, one of the things I thought that would make the airplane seem more today would be to make the ailerons full span. From all the way from the tip to the root. And the interesting thing is that on the Volksplane, various things were done to make it extremely simple to build. And one of the things is that the aileron hinges mount right to the aft spar. And that consequently causes the ailerons to be very deep from their front to their trailing edge, deeper than you normally would do. It made it easier to build, but it's not really the most desirable setup. Nothing wrong with it, but it's just not the most desirable. So I've done a variety of things to actually make the ailerons a little bit shorter from front to back, but then make them full span. And my initial idea was to also incorporate flaperons so that they would be able to droop while still being differential. And that's the reason that I built this mock-up, was to work on some of the linkages and such to verify how that should really work. And I've come up with some great ideas, and I've proven my basic concepts here, but I'm thinking that I might forego the flaperon aspect until after the airplane's done, just to be able to speed things up. So anyway, one of the things though that I wound up changing that I think is going to work out really well is, instead of having a center mounted stick like would normally be coming out of the seat here, I've actually reconfigured it to be a side mounted stick. So this mock-up has allowed me to test positionings and the comfort, the actuation, and indeed then back here behind the bulkhead to generate bell cranks and push rods to allow me to drive the ailerons. That's another one of the advantages to going with the full span aileron, is that I can drive the actuation of the ailerons off of the inboard end inside the fuselage, essentially, rather than having, as it normally would be on a Volksplane, where you have cables and pulleys and such running out into the wing. And it's just, I think that's more complicated. To me, this is more streamlined, and it's actually, I think, simpler all the way around. So I'm going to move the camera here and show you some other views so you can see a little better some of the things that I've come up with. Okay, here we are moved around slightly to the side, looking from the rear quarter view. The paper here represents the wing and the rib shape, and the spars, the rear spars in this location and the main spars up here, and those have metal straps that are on each side of the spar, and those straps then go around the bulkheads. So the bulkheads become the primary structural member holding the airplane together. They're very important. If we move around here a little further to the back, we're looking at the back side now of the seat bulkhead, which also is where the rear spar then would be attaching. What I've done is I've moved the control torque tube over to the side of the airplane for that side stick controller motion. It comes out through the bulkhead, And then we use a push rod to drive this large belt crank. The belt crank comes down with another push rod down here, driving an extension coming right off the inboard end of the aileron. I've created this artificial aileron here, kind of a dummy aileron, to simulate the action. And even like the full span or the full size regular airplanes ailerons would be, I've put a counterbalance out here just to take the weight of the aileron off of all the control system, especially because I'm just using this PVC, which is, obviously not airworthy in any means. None of this is airworthy, but it's just to prove the designs, the ideas that I've had. So as you can see, as I move this aileron up and down, we're getting movement in the stick up there, just like we'd want. One of the other things that I've done is the neutral position, which is right about here with the aileron, actually has the stick mounted slightly off at an angle, which is a more natural position for how, if you hold your hand out in front of you, you'll actually notice you don't really hold your hand straight up and down like this. Typically you have your hand at a bit of an angle. So that works out really well. That's exactly what you get for a neutral position on the stick when you're using the side stick controller. So basically this testing that I've done has verified the basic geometry. Still a little bit of tweaking to do, I'm sure, but at least now having not done this type of work in detail before, now I definitely see some of the things that are going to have to be done to allow this to work. Now I'm back over here on the left side of the mock-up looking at the torque tube and the stick itself. The elevator cables would attach top and bottom here in a very similar fashion as they would be on a normal Volksplane, except that again the stick would be in the center on the regular airplane. Now one of the things that I found out in the process of trying this side stick is I think it actually is going to make the cockpit seem significantly more roomy. With the stick coming out of the middle, you wind up having to stick your arm down inside the cockpit and your elbow is kind of pushing over into the side of the airplane. In this configuration, because the side of the airplane is really so low, you sort of sit almost on top of a Volksplane rather than way down inside of it. So the right arm can actually sit on the sill of the fuselage and actually hang out a little bit. Well, if you hang your arm out like that, where does your hand wind up? It winds up right there where that stick is. So it looks to me like, as I've sat in it, tried it out, it seems like it would be extremely comfortable and extremely natural, while also freeing up a little bit more room in the cockpit and making getting down into the cockpit and out a lot easier because you don't have that stick sitting in the middle. Now I have the airfoil profile pulled out of the way, and I'm actually going to climb in the airplane here and show you what it looks like once I'm in there. And it may not be real pretty getting there, but you'll get the idea. Now, as you can see, I also have a little bit of an angle here to the seat bottom. The original Volksplane has a flat bottom seat, but to me, it makes more sense to go ahead and put a little angle on it, which actually helps to support the legs, makes it remarkably comfortable, even without cushions in here. Now, I'm not saying for long periods of time, but even at the moment, quite comfortable. I'd have a cushion in here anyway. But here you can see the right arm can hang just outside over the fuselage side. And right here, the stick is so comfortable. It's just right in the right spot. And, again, I'm just using this PVC, so I'm not sure. Hey, you can see the aileron moving up and down. And of course, I don't have anything hooked up to the elevators, or the elevator action, at least at this point in time. But the stick seems to be extremely comfortable here. And again, no stick in the middle, so you've got a little more freedom of movement. And I think makes this cockpit, which is a little on the small side, feel quite comfortable. Now we're kind of getting an overview of the mock-up and even a little bit of the shop. You can see I have a 4-foot wide by 16-foot long table that I've built here with some tools mounted at this end. I've got a lot of flexibility. Things can be moved around. It's a large enough table that I can use a variety of different workspace areas on it at different times, clear things off and use it for the jig for the fuselage and for the wings. I'm actually building in a one-car garage, quite small, and I've even blocked off some of it. I put this wall up to put the junk on the other side. So it's not a real large space, and surprisingly, a table this large could be a real liability, it would seem, in a relatively small space, but I'm finding it works quite well. I'm pretty pleased with the amount of workspace that I have, and yet enough room to move around and get around the table on all sides and be able to utilize it in different zones for different tasks. This video is really a bit of a test, kind of to see, is this camera going to work out well? How am I going to want to shoot things? How's the lighting? Stuff like that. Again, hopefully real soon, we're going to get this airplane started.